Willie Nelson isn't just a country music legend. He is a living monument to pain, perseverance, and poetic rebellion. He once gave us "On the Road Again," a song that captured the spirit of wanderers, the ache of endless highways, and the beauty of a soul always moving forward. But behind that warm melody lies a man who has weathered storms far greater than most could imagine. For over 7 decades, he has stood unshaken through betrayal, collapse, and unspeakable loss, turning every scar into a song that stitched itself into the hearts of millions. He didn't merely survive. He turned disgrace into dignity, silence into anthems, and grief into grace. Now, at 92, while most would choose to rest, Willie still faces storms with a quiet strength and a fire that refuses to fade. But behind the calm smile lies a weight few could understand. And the final years of his journey may hold truths more haunting than ever before. Some hearts are born with cracks too wide for childhood to fill. Before he was a legend, before the world ever heard the gravel in his voice or the aching beauty of "On the Road Again," Willie Hugh Nelson was just a forgotten child in the dust of Abbott, Texas. Born in 1933 during the Great Depression, Willie's first lessons weren't about music. They were about loss. His mother walked out first, vanishing from his life like smoke. No note, no farewell. His father, barely holding himself together, remarried and disappeared too. Willie was just a baby, too young to understand betrayal, but old enough to feel its burn. He and his sister Bobby were left in the care of their poor but kind-hearted grandparents, who did what they could to patch the holes in 2 children no one else stayed to love. It wasn't neglect. It was survival. But that survival came at a brutal cost. His grandfather, a blacksmith and the first person to ever place a guitar in Willie's hands, became the boy's only anchor, his hero, his safe place. And then, when Willie was just 6 years old, pneumonia stole him away too. That death wasn't just devastating. It shattered what little security Willie had left. In his autobiography, Willie wrote with aching clarity, "Our separation from Mother and Daddy seemed worse than a death because they were still out there in the world. But they weren't with me and Bobby like they were supposed to be." How cruel for a child to know his parents were alive, just not interested. The pain wasn't just grief, it was abandonment. By the time he turned 7 in 1940, Willie wasn't playing with toys. He was clinging to a guitar like it was a lifeline. He didn't learn chords for fun. He learned them to quiet the storm in his chest. At age 9, while other boys were playing in the dirt, Willie was performing in local bars with the Bohemian Polka Band. He sang gospel in church. But even there, he wasn't singing for salvation. He was singing for someone to hear him. Every stage he stood on, even as a child, was less a performance and more a cry for connection. Willie's teenage years were marked by calluses, not just on his hands from picking cotton under the brutal Texas sun, but on his heart. Music became his only currency. He sold encyclopedias door to door, cut grass, and even worked as a saddle maker. But every dollar was just a stepping stone to his dream, making it in music. By his early 20s, Willie had already been rejected by countless record labels. His voice was too nasal. His look was too scruffy. His style didn't fit the Nashville mold. But Willie wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing freedom. And that freedom came in the form of songwriting. In the late 1950s, he moved to Nashville, the glittering capital of country music, but also a city where outsiders were chewed up and spit out. For years, Willie worked behind the scenes, writing songs that other singers turned into hits. Crazy for Patsy Cline, Nightlife for Ray Price, Hello Walls for Farron Young. The irony was cruel. His words were winning awards and selling millions, but his own voice was still being ignored. By the early 1970s, Willie had had enough. He left Nashville, returned to Texas, and embraced what would become known as outlaw country. No rhinestones, no polished image, just raw, unfiltered music. Albums like Shotgun Willie, Red-Headed Stranger, and Stardust cemented his place in history. Suddenly, the voice Nashville had rejected became the voice America couldn't stop listening to. In 1990, disaster struck. The IRS claimed Willie owed $32 million in unpaid taxes, an amount so large it threatened to erase everything he had built. They seized his property, his recording studio, even his beloved guitars. Most artists would have disappeared under that kind of debt. But Willie, he got creative. He released the IRS tapes, Who'll Buy My Memo? Memories? An album sold directly to fans, with proceeds going to pay off the debt. Slowly, painfully, he climbed out of the hole. Willie Nelson's life has been a long road, but not all the mile markers have been lined with applause and neon lights. Some were shadowed by grief so deep it threatened to end the music entirely. In 1991, tragedy hit with a force that even Willie's strongest songs could not soften. The death of his son, Willie Nelson. Billy was just 33 years old, a gifted guitarist with the same quiet sensitivity as his father. He died by suicide on Christmas Day. No father is prepared for that call. For Willie, it was like the world went silent. The laughter, the crowds, the chords, none of it could cut through the weight pressing on his heart. He later admitted that the grief was like a fog that wouldn't lift. "You never get over it," he said softly in an interview years later. "You just learn to carry it." And carry it he did. On stage, in the tour bus, in every verse he sang after that day. But it wasn't the only loss that left him hollow. In the years that followed, Willie buried dear friends who were more like family. Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson's health fading, and so many others from the outlaw country days. Each loss was a reminder that the circle was shrinking, and someday his name would be the one people spoke in past tense. Yet Willie never turned away from the pain. Instead, he poured it into albums like Spirit and Teatro, where the spaces between the notes were as heavy as the lyrics themselves. His music became not just a celebration of life, but a quiet mourning for everything and everyone it takes away. Most men at 92 are sitting in quiet rooms, flipping through photo albums, or telling the same stories to visitors who politely smile. Not Willie Nelson. In 2025, at 92 years old, Willie was still on tour, still on the road again. His concerts may not have the wild all-night energy of the 1970s, but there's a different kind of electricity now. A reverence. When Willie walks on stage these days, the crowd rises as one, not just because they love the music, but because they know they are witnessing something rare, a living piece of American history standing right there in front of them. Of course, the years have taken their toll. His voice is raspier, his hands tremble a little, and every tour schedule must be carefully balanced against the realities of an aging body. He's had battles with emphysema, bouts of pneumonia, and the quiet, constant ache of arthritis. But when asked why he still tours, he smiles and says, "What else am I going to do? This is what I know. This is what I love." Every show now feels like a gift. Fans clutch tickets as if they were golden keepsakes. Some bring their children, or even grandchildren, eager to let them see the man who sang through America's heartbreaks and celebrations for more than 7 decades. The songs hit differently now. Always on My Mind sounds more tender. On the Road Again feels almost defiant. Willie doesn't just stand under the spotlight, he stands in defiance of time itself. And as long as there's breath in him, he'll keep stepping onto that stage. If Willie Nelson's life could be distilled into one truth, it's this: you can be broken 1,000 times and still keep singing. From a boy abandoned in Abbott, Texas, to a man who lost fortunes, friends, and even his own child, Willie has faced enough storms to sink lesser men. Yet, instead of retreating, he turned pain into poetry, hardship into harmony. His legacy isn't just in the records he's sold, though there are millions. It's in the way he blurred the lines between country, blues, folk, and rock, making music for everyone, not just a genre. It's in his activism for farmers, his fight for marijuana legalization, his deep respect for the land and the people who work it. It's in the quiet way he's shown the world that kindness and grit can live in the same heart. And when the final curtain falls and the lights dim for the last time, Willie Nelson's story will still play on, in jukeboxes, in dusty old vinyl collections, in the voices of those who grew up with his songs as the soundtrack to their lives. At 92, Willie Nelson isn't just preparing for the end. He's still adding verses to a song that began almost a century ago. And maybe that's the real magic, that even in the twilight of his life, he's still teaching us all how to live.